Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a super disappointing, generic MCU movie. Let's talk about why. A growing number of people down the years have more and more been coming along saying, I'm bored of the MCU, I'm bored of Marvel, I want something different, it's all just the same. So it looked like Marvel had been listening. They changed things up. They had some interesting little films like Shang-Chi, that was quite good. Spider-Man was phenomenal. The multiverse was coming and it looked like it was going to completely shake things up, give us something completely new, and they even promised to be mind-bending, which can go one of two ways. It can either be absolutely terrible or it can be absolutely sensational. Look at something like Inception. That's a mind-bending film in some aspects. Some people absolutely loved it, some people absolutely hated it. And that's where I thought they were going with Doctor Strange. They're going to do something innovative, something different, something to reignite the MCU. And instead, they went the path of, well, let's just, dabble in it, but also keep the main good guy versus bad guy. Spoiler alert, good guy wins, as I said in my first impressions video yesterday. It's a movie that I feel could have been the cornerstone going forward. This could have, really kickstarted the whole multiverse. It could have had so much craziness from that, and maybe there will be, but it's not a promising start in my opinion. The MCU is so big now that it's getting to the point where if you don't watch absolutely everything, you could be completely lost. For example, if you have not watched WandaVision, you'll be completely lost in Doctor Strange as to where certain things have come from and certain people have come from. Same with if you haven't watched What If, you might be confused as to where certain characters pop up from. So it really is becoming a chore to stay involved with the MCU now because you have to watch absolutely everything. And sure, you only have to watch things, that's not too difficult, but when all those things take up multiple hours of your day and multiple hours of your life, it becomes tedious at some point. And it's getting to the point where they're constantly making generic film after generic film after generic film where it just makes you wonder, where does it end? Where does the bubble burst? But getting back to the actual movie and away from that little rant about the MCU, so I'm going to try my best not to spoil anything going further into this review, apart from a couple of minor things which are important to get across in the review. The opening scene of the movie is actually fantastic. It's unique, it's different, it's something we haven't seen before. Doctor Strange has a new haircut, that's always exciting, I guess. He speaks Spanish, and there's a new girl we haven't seen before, and she's got this cool power that she can only kind of control sometimes. And then we end up with a modern day Doctor Strange, because I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's multiple Doctor Stranges in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And further on from that, then they set up their fairly basic story. There's a good guy, it's Doctor Strange, and then they establish that Wanda, or more accurately, the Scarlet Witch, is the bad guy. And she's after the woman from the beginning of the movie, the young girl who has this special power. She can travel the multiverse. That's her power. And from there, the story winds on with the villain trying to get the girl while Doctor Strange tries to save the girl. Now, the movie does have some interesting points. We see Doctor Strange go to a couple of different multiverses, and different rules apply in different multiverses. And then we see some other characters you might have completely forgotten about unless you've watched Doctor Strange, the first one, fairly recently. Like Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, I completely forgot who he was. And that's the thing, like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't watched every bit of the MCU and kept yourself up to date with every character, there's points in this movie where you'll just get lost. Interestingly, recently I saw a quote, I think it was from Kevin Feige, saying that too much of this movie had been given away in the trailers. And all week long I've seen Marvel say, don't give any spoilers, we're not allowing any replies on our tweets or our posts because we don't want any spoilers. But there's not a whole lot to spoil. There is some surprises in there, and there's some big things, big reveals that will come into play later on in the MCU. But I don't know if they were gigantic spoilers, because a lot of them had already been given away in the trailer, or should I say trailers. Even the week leading up to the movie, they kept releasing these mini trailers, 30-second long ones. I think I shared one on the community post on the channel, which community posts are now available on the channel, which is pretty cool. But even still, they just kept pumping out these 30-second little clips, and each one would have a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, to the point where there wasn't a whole lot left in the movie if you've watched some of the trailers. Now, I tried to stay away from the trailers as much as possible. I tried to stay away from any gossip about the movie, but of course I've seen the Super Bowl trailer for it, and the first trailer that came out, and they gave away so much in that. One thing in particular I thought was going to be a misdirect. A certain voice I thought was going to be a misdirect, and it wasn't. So, if you've seen the trailer, you probably know what that spoiler is. Spoiler alert. Scarlet Witch as a villain is interesting because they've stated many times of how powerful she is, and they've shown how strong she is, and really put her in the front of the Avengers, one of the most powerful Avengers. And when she's the bad guy, she's even stronger. She's a good villain on paper, but she can't keep flip-flopping because Age of Ultron, she was a bad guy, then she was a good guy, then she was kind of looked like the bad guy in WandaVision, and then she became the good guy again, and now she's the bad guy again, and I guess at the end, she's kind of the good guy again. There's so much flip-flopping going on right there. Well, why couldn't they have Wanda from a different multiverse be an evil Wanda? That would have made a little bit more sense as the whole flip-flopping thing. While the movie had its moments, and all the MCU movies do have their fair share of moments, I think it's like they're assigned 4 or 5 each. While it did have its moments, it didn't have anything that made me say, wow. And in fact, at the end, everybody's waiting for the post-credit scenes and everybody's sitting there and everybody's talking, and I tried just sitting in silence and listening to what other people were saying. There was a couple of young guys who were very annoying throughout the movie. They kept speaking to the point where multiple people told them to shut up throughout the movie, including one old woman who turned around and just said to them, "We're trying to watch a movie here, guys, either shut up or leave." And I think everybody wanted to applaud the old woman at that point because it was hilarious and the guys just shut up for the most part. That was the highlight of the movie for me, was the old woman telling the young guys to shut up. But as I was getting to, I was listening for what other people were saying around me when I just sat and waited for the post-credits scene. A lot of it was dissenting. A lot of people were like, it was okay. A lot of people were like, it's bad. A lot of people were like, I didn't enjoy it. Some people even were saying I wanted to leave. I didn't hear too many positives from people around me. My opinion on the movie overall was that it was okay. It wasn't anything special, but it certainly wasn't anything bad. It had its moments, it had some interesting shock value in it. It had some good reveals in it. There's one reveal in particular that's been rumored for years, and it's not the X-Men one. It's the Fantastic Four one. Fantastic Four has already been confirmed by MCU, by Marvel, that Fantastic Four movie is coming. But as to who's playing Reed Richards, that's been rumored for a long, long time. And that was confirmed in this one, albeit in a different multiverse, so they could still change it and have a different actor and say he's Reed Richards from a different universe. I was expecting a little bit more. Despite going in with low expectations for the movie, I was expecting more in terms of, you know, they had the whole multiverse element in Loki. I thought we might see Loki pop up at some point in the movie. The multiverse thing was kind of a thing in Spider-Man. I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop up. And also the whole multiverse thing, and I said it before talking about other Marvel stuff, the multiverse could get kind of messy, but I can see how Marvel could use it as a vessel to bring back certain characters or to bring in new actors. For example, they could have Iron Man from a different multiverse played by a different actor. For example, Tom Cruise could be Iron Man in this other multiverse. They get to keep the Iron Man character, big name actor, you know, add another element to the MCU. I think that would be terrible personally, just because just be a cash grab, but you could see how they could do it. I could also see how they could go to another multiverse, find another Tony Stark who ends up being a bad guy. Imagine Tony Stark as a bad guy. That could be pretty interesting. The multiverse on paper has a lot of potential, but if they're just going to go through and have this generic good guy versus bad guy, good guy wins, it's already stale enough as it is. Looking at the movie in itself, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, judging just that as a movie, it's a very middle of the road movie. What I will say for anybody who's still watching this review, trying to decide whether they want to go see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the one piece of advice I would give is it's not worth waiting around for the very end credit scene. It just isn't. It really isn't. Look it up on YouTube and you'll see why it's not worth waiting around for, because the credits last a long, long time. So when it comes down to a rating for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. It's an underwhelming movie. And I gotta say, overall, I'm left disappointed with the MCU once again. And I find myself saying that more and more lately, to the point where now I think that's just me done. That's me done with the MCU. Spider-Man's cool and everything. There's going to be some interesting movie which I'll watch on my spare time, but I don't think I'm going to cover the MCU on the channel anymore. Not unless something truly spectacular comes along. And in all honesty, I can't see that happening from the MCU, given this recent failure from Marvel.